Good morning, folks. Oh, my Lord, it's the 19th. The 19th is a heck of a day of the month. The rain. What are you barking at, huh? What do you hear, huh? Look, folks, this is going to be a very interesting year. This is going to be the turning point. And in case you're wondering, I'm hoping we turn back to our old ways, our roots, back to our original government structure. And I don't mind giving advice on this and telling you that the best thing you could do would be to make me president. No, I don't think I have the stamina for it anymore. I don't think I'm as quick thinking on my feet as what you really need. I do think I understand things quite well, and I would love to be an advisor to such a person, but I really don't want the stress. I mean, I still got a little bit of color in my hair. By the way, that's because I went to using that Hawaiian salt. That stuff's good. I emptied my salt mill, the grinder up, put it in the salt shaker that I have, and then I put in some more. I put in almost all the Hawaiian salt with just a little bit left. I got to call the girls up and get some order. I think I'm going to get a full pound of it, maybe 2 pounds. I like it. Salt will preserve itself, basically. And in the past, we used it as money. As a matter of fact, villages, societies, tribes went to war over salt. They fought over salt because they knew that was what was necessary for life. Without the minerals that salt gives you, you're not going to live very long. And in case you're wondering, my hair was completely white until I started using that salt just recently. It looks ugly. It looks like it's black. It looks like black rock salt. It looks like it's made out of the tar in the road. It glistens nicely, and it grinds up. It's coarse, and it grinds wonderfully in the mill. I really like the way it feeds in there. So, what I want to tell you tonight, well, it's morning time. It's 6 o'clock. I got up a little bit earlier. The dog woke me up. I slept pretty good last night. I don't know how you're sleeping out there, but I hope it's all right. You need to understand a lot of things right now. You need to understand that we are under attack, and this is warfare going on, and it is sabotage. And the sabotage is going to broaden and widen. It's going to broaden and widen until you men, and some of you ladies out there even, take up arms and start guarding these facilities. You cannot count upon this establishment to protect us anymore at all. As a matter of fact, they will step aside and let the federal government do these horrible false flags, do these horrible, horrible things to us because they think they're helping the government to help us. They don't understand. This government has been captured a long time ago. It is morphed into something that we do not control, cannot control. And we need to put it down like the rabid dog it's become. It is absolutely horrible. So can you tell me if the corporations control the government or the government controls the corporations? I can't discern the difference between the two at this particular point. I know they're working in evil ways. The companies claim they're private companies and have rights over the rest of us. They can dictate to us what the government's not allowed to do. What do you call that? I think those people on those interlocking corporate boards need to be held accountable. So I know a lot of you are going to go after politicians, and rightfully so. And I predicted more than a decade ago that there was going to be big sport, taking shots at them like you're hunting big game. I'm surprised it hasn't happened, but I realize things are happening in a different time span, a different time than what I was envisioning. So what I want you to do, I want you to get in the best physical shape you can get. I want you to get in fighting shape. You are going to absolutely be defending your lives this year. It's coming down. You need to get the strongest you can get because they're going to be fighting you with biologicals and above all radio frequency interference. Their 5G weapon and their 6G weapons. You need to understand that these were developed a long time ago and they were put in place by your last jackass in the Oval Office. I'm sorry, he made some major mistakes. So I can't help but think he's bought off as well. And a telltale sign that a man is not who he says he is is when he says one thing and does another, especially when he comes up with great platitudes and he lies to you. He tells you all people are born equal. That's bullshit. That's the number one lie in the United States of America. We are not born equal. If that's the case, man, I identify as the leading quarterback for the New England Patriots, the best quarterback of all time. Oh, yeah, and I'm married to Giselle. What's her name? Yeah. Hey, Giselle, did you know that? Hey, Tom. You had a good run, didn't you? Man, best quarterback in history so far. Look, folks, football's not worth watching anymore. They rigged that game up like everything else. And I don't think that we should give them a monopoly anymore on the entertainment and the liars and the thieves they become. Why should we permit gambling when the game is rigged? My Lord. How rigged is your life today? How rigged is the game today? It's totally rigged. It's totally controlled. We don't set the price of gold or silver. There's no open market in anything. And in case you're wondering, there's a little passage in the Bible which really bothers me, but I think I understand now how it's going to be fulfilled, how it's going to come to fruition. It says quite clearly in the major prophet, Isaiah, that you will throw your gold and your silver in the streets. Yeah. Imagine that. Imagine the circumstances that would require people to throw their gold and their silver in the streets like it was refuse. Okay, let's brainstorm just a little bit. I think the most common sense interpretation or application, if you will, is that people are going to be so desperate for food and so hungry that gold and silver aren't going to matter because you can't buy anything with it. That's a possibility. I think there's another possibility that maybe we find out that the gold in the Grand Canyon is so massive that it has no value anymore because it's not rare. There's a possibility of that too. The Egyptians were in the Grand Canyon. When I was a little boy, I wanted to drift down the Grand Canyon, and that was before they cut off a lot of the exploration. I read about it, and there was a place where the Egyptians had a presence in the Grand Canyon in Arizona. Yeah. Their civilization was much grander with much better technology than what we have today. Maybe it refers to the fact that we actually have figured out or will figure out how to create matter, change matter. Maybe in our, the nuclear reactors, the fusion reactors, they'll be able to actually produce gold. Maybe it will become worthless because we can make it. There's all kinds of possibilities to things. And I give you these examples because I want you to start thinking with an open mind. And I want you to read the Bible with an open mind. I want you to apply your mind to what you're reading in the Bible. This war has to be fought individually. You see, you will not make America great again by electing some guy who's going to fill you full of platitudes and make you feel good about yourselves. You're not going to be electing no damn salesman, and he's going to sell you a rotten bill of goods. Goes my lighting. Sorry, folks. The studio is very cheap. As my mother would say, you're cheap, 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 just like your father. My God, and she would sound like a cheeping bird. I don't know why she had to give him such a hard time. But she did, and it was very, very hard. It was so hard that basically on her deathbed, as she was in hospice, she told her main keeper that she had been too hard on her husband, too hard on my father. And, of course, the hospice individual didn't see any of that, but I got to live through it. And she was too hard on Dad. And too difficult on the rest of the family, and way too difficult on me. She did me bodily harm, actually, but I don't really want to go into that and start feeling sorry for myself. What happened to me happened to me. What it did do is it brought me to many realizations, and it brought me to this area where I am very comfortable in my faith and in my understanding and what I see and what I understand is going on. So I know that all hell is what's going on right now in the country, and it's going to get worse. And it's going to be very, very bad. But I'm looking forward to it because we will be better on the other side of this when we get through it. I think that a lot of people who have violated their oaths of office are going to be given swinging times, folks. Yeah, we're going to have some swinging times. Going to become a bunch of swingers with portable swings. You get my drift. I can't speak out loud and very directly on this channel. When I say direct things, I got feedback the other day, last night, from YouTube that my feedback was found, or my comments were found to violate YouTube guidelines. And of course, they didn't give me any feedback, honest feedback on it. They just sent that message and it's gone. There it is, disappears in the ethers. And I don't know what it refers to because I say so much. And my expressiveness is pretty doggone artistic. And of course, there's no room for art or creative expression on the internet. Not when you have dumbass artificial intelligence. Jesus. I mean, there's no sense of humor, no sense of artistry. We're not allowed to express ourselves according to our First Amendment rights. We're not allowed to stir each other up and make each other think so that we can come out better. We can't pull together. They won't allow it on those systems. I think on Facebook, Fascist Book, which is a Department of Defense PSYOP, on a profile that I have that is an alt basically, they keep sending me all kinds of notices to get me back on there to track my ass better. It's a tracking system. I participated on it because I wanted to get my channel out there. And the channel is starting to take off. It's not doing great yet, but it's going, and it's slow. And I realize I should have started this a long time ago. But then I probably wasn't unguarded enough. I wasn't violent enough in my language. I wasn't lambastic enough to make the splash that needed to be made. At this point, I've gotten some feedback, and I know a lot of you tell me, Grandpa, what are you doing out there? Well, I'll tell you what I'm doing. I'm trying to save your ass. I'm trying to recover my nation. The nation is totally captured right now. Your government is not your government. It's a bunch of actors and actresses that do what they're told. They are totally controlled. They are members of all one party called the I Am Bought Off Party. We had it in Alaska for years, and now it's been mainstreamed to America. We had a good governor, Sarah Palin, who actually took on the good old boys and did a great job for the first year. But then they started doing little backstabbing moves, and they irritated the hell out of her. And unfortunately, under that much stress and that much strain, she faltered. And the less desirable aspects of her personality, her flaws, surfaced for all to see. And that was a sad thing. It really was. But the badgering was due to the Democrats, the political left, the communists, the subversives among us at this point. You have a lot of stooges, a lot of dumbasses, a lot of people that are going to be killed once the communists take over in a really overt manner in this country. All of those people that think they've done a good job and done good work have been used and don't realize it. My mind just can't think of the words right now. I've got a little bit of a mental block on that. You need to understand that the average person in this country has been totally deceived, bamboozled, fooled, and defrauded. That's the status of mental health in the United States of America. You have been deceived, and as a result, you become a deceiver. If you want the greatest example of that in history, turn to your Bible in Genesis chapter 3. What you will find is that Eve is being confronted by Yahweh, Creator, Father God. And Eve is not alone. She's not with Adam. She's with Gadriel, one of the 5 leaders of the fallen angels. And Gadriel has deceived her and seduced her and impregnated her with Cain. And those are the people that you're dealing with today. It's not just the descendants of Cain. There were 200 fallen angels at Mount Hermon. That's the best I've been able to determine. We have a piece of artwork in which it's carved. There are 60 angels falling to the earth. It's a rather ornate piece of art, quite a carving. I don't know how big it is. I don't know where it is either. I would love to see that in person. And the sad thing is that I probably could have walked into the Uffizi and seen it there when I was going to college in Florence, Italy. Yeah, that little year that I spent in Florence, Italy, educated me way beyond what I ever realized. And it helped me tremendously so I could sort this big puzzle out and give you the pieces you need to know right now. You want to recover your republic? Then make America good again. You don't make it great. America was great because she was good. And today America is no good. It's been taken over. It's got a bunch of parasites in it. They rule the roost. They captured the population. They captured the government, all of the institutions. It's a really big conspiracy. Not a theory. It's your reality. That's why you're living through this bullshit today. They even used our Bibles against us. As a matter of fact, that's how they accomplished the last takedown. So if you're a Christian going to churchianity, you're going to be very offended to find out that you've been had, because you think you know it all, and you don't. You have been told what the Bible says. You have not read the Bible for yourself. And you certainly haven't read it in the original languages. When I was in Europe for that year as an adult, well, I became an adult that year, I guess. At that time, it was age 21. I turned 21 that year, and the Israelis kicked butt on the Egyptians again. I went up to Munich, and I went to Oktoberfest, and I found some GIs out in the shadows, wondering what the hell are those guys doing out there? And I talked to them. And they told me, look, we're staying here. We're staying low profile. We're staying out of the light. Why? All leaves have been canceled. What? Your leaves? Yeah, they've all been canceled, and we don't want to go back. And I talked to one guy and said, well, what the hell is going on? And the guy, they said, look, we're getting ready to go to war. We could be called up at any moment right now. And the other guy says, I said, what the hell are you guys talking about? You know, and the one guy says, look, all I know is I've been painting tanks desert colors all week. This is in Munich, München, Germany, Deutschland. It's Oktoberfest, 1973. And I'm supposed to go, as part of my year in Gonzaga and Florence, I'm supposed to go to the Promised Land, to the Holy Land, to Israel for a tour, and also to Egypt to see the pyramids. And believe me, that was a big selling point on the high bucks I had to borrow to go to school that year. And I was so glad because I was going to get to see those things and go those places. Oh, little did I know the Israelis were going to sucker the Egyptians into another damn war. No, the Egyptians didn't start that war. It was the Israelis. And an Israeli is not an Israelite. And if you're new to my channel, you need to know that an Israeli is not an Israelite. And you could go watch my other channel, Awakening Israel, to learn a little bit more about that. I should be out of the doghouse. They would not allow me to upload for the last 2 weeks. I'm trying to remember what I did wrong. Oh, yes. I described the experiment in the Psychology 101, the experiment they took out of the books because they wanted to hide that technology from all of us. Yeah, see, one of the things I did as a budding psychologist when I was younger, because I committed to becoming one, I bought every Psychology 101 textbook all the teachers at the university had, and the teachers used different textbooks. So I had 3 or 4 Psychology 101 textbooks, and I read them all. And the one had an experiment in there, which was very important to understanding modern medical intervention, modern medical treatment. I will call it treatment. It is that. It's also more than that. So that's as far as we're going to go. I brought that up and they don't want the truth coming out. I knew what I was talking about. Yet I can't express myself as the scientist that I became, understanding the history, the experiments. They don't want you to know the truth. They want to keep you in the dark. You're their favorite mushroom. The government lies all the time to you. And you will not get control unless you take it this year and defend the borders, because this government's not going to defend the borders. They're helping the rest of the world, well, the Chi-Coms in particular, and the World Economic Forum to take down America. That is what's going on. And the predatory groups in the background that have been running this country for a long time, the internationalists in particular. You need to understand something. Nationalism is a necessity. It's a necessity to preserve your culture, to save your people. It's very important. My mother told me that I had a rough life. And why did she tell me that? Well, because I had a rough life, and at that particular point, we didn't know what my future was. I had a dire diagnosis, and the physicians are no good at telling you what's coming. They don't deal with death very well, to be honest with you. They usually refer you to a psychologist to explain it to you, to give it to you gently, combining my words again. That happens once in a while. My parents had visited me because I told them my diagnosis, and they figured they better see me while they could. I didn't realize that they were going to react like that. And they flew down, and they visited me where I was living and working at the time, and drove their motorhome. Actually, I think they might have picked it up in Florida and driven it across country at that point. I don't remember, but I actually am in that motorhome right now. And for the first time, my parents lauded it upon me, were actually positive. They were so positive, so caring, so loving, enthusiastic that it creeped me out. I wasn't used to this. I was used to being cajoled, belittled, and abused. And here I am, they're speaking highly of me. No one ever before in the family had earned a doctorate. Not on either side of the family. Well, I'll tell you this, the smartest person in my family that I could discern, that I ever met and hung out with, was my paternal grandmother. She was college educated. She was college educated at a time when her college degree was about the equivalent of a doctorate in my lifetime. You see, you've had devaluation or inflation, theft in all domains, especially education. They keep you dumbed down on purpose. They did their best to keep me dumbed down as well. The problem is that I'm a deep thinker. I want to figure things out. I want to make things happen. I want success for my clients. I want success for other people. And I get it. And the problem we have as a nation is that we have been taken over from within. We have been fed a bunch of bovine excrement, and we have become bad. we're no longer good. When we were founded, the rest of the world marveled. Why? Because America was so great, and they wanted to know why. Alec de Tocqueville visited the new country, the new nation, and he hung out with us. For 2 years he traveled and he lived with us, and he wrote a book. He wrote a book about his travels in America and his observations as a social scientist. And basically, he came down to one conclusion. America was great because America is good. And then he made his major prophecy. And when America is no longer good, America will cease to be great. Yes, folks, we've gone way beyond the turning point on that. Look at this nation, look at the country. Look at how the norms, the ethics, the morality, the laws, the multitude of laws, and the duplicity and the criminality have just magnified so much and taken over this nation. We are ruled by murderers and thieves. Anytime one of these thieves at the top needs to snuff out their competition, they hire a murderer. They've got murderers placed about every mile and a half among us. They can call up one of their assets at any time and get you dusted off. There's no problem with killing a man in this country. As a matter of fact, it's such an art and such a science, they make it look like a suicide. They make it look like an accident. My God, Jeffrey Epstein was strangled with his own CPAP machine. Those were the initial impressions of the medical examiner that looked at him initially. And you are satisfied with this last Attorney General jackass who covered it up. He covered up the murder. Is that not a crime? Where are the charges against the former Attorney General for the United States? Folks, you can start your own grand juries. You can bring charges against them. The problem is you don't have a good judicial system anymore. There is a judge who spills the beans. That's the title of this. I printed this up off the internet. Retired judge spills the beans. He's all right. But he went ahead and played the bad game that was before him. At least he's telling us the truth in part about what they've done. So you and I have been captured. We have been deported. We are no longer residing in America the Great, America with a constitution. We are residing underneath one of 4 different corporations that were incorporated, entitled the United States of America, with different degrees of punctuation, capitalization, and all that other BS in it. And they played a giant shell game on us. And they took away our Constitution. And in case you're wondering, they started their law the same year I was born, 70 years ago. 71 at this point, okay. My parents got together in the cold of the winter, so I was born in October. United Nations Day of all the damn days. What a horrible thing to remember your birthday by, huh? Man, if I was president, the United Nations would be out of our soil, off our territory. Anyone working for the United Nations would be expelled. Sorry, I'm just that way. I'm a hardliner. These guys are criminals and crooks. I don't want them doing anything again. And one of the lessons I learned in the penitentiaries is that those guys, even when they're behind the walls, commit their crimes. They get their acolytes out there to commit the crimes for them. So even a sex offender that's in prison is dangerous to others, because they'll coach somebody else out there on how to do this stuff, what to do. They'll encourage them. If we had biblical law, we wouldn't need the prisons we have. There'd be a whole lot more executions for sure. A lot of these sex offenders don't like what they do. They don't like what they become. They appealed to me. They wanted to get treatment. They explained the situation to me. And I was just trying to do my job and keep my job. But I can tell you that Arizona is one of 6 states that the Supreme Court of the United States allows to keep sex offenders past the dates of sentencing. In other words, the guy's given 8 years and they get to keep him longer than that, based upon the erroneous assumption that they're getting necessary treatment for their problem. And they don't give them treatment, especially in Arizona. They took the treatment away. There was decent treatment out of Tucson that was given independently in the penitentiary system, but then they decided they wanted to save the money. And they wanted to mainstream it, bring it into the institution. And so they hired somebody who doesn't do a good job, who's got one of the weirdest philosophies ever that I've heard of. But it's a bona fide perspective. I understand that. And I understand his treatment is no good. And I understand the treatment that was out of Tucson that was independent actually was honorable, noble, and decent, and had hope. And the men that I saw, the sex offenders, wanted hope. They wanted treatment. They didn't like what they had become. They didn't like what they had done. They wanted treatment earlier. And they didn't want to have to stay way past their dates of sentencing so they could get treatment. And the state of Arizona pulls that fraud and keeps them illegally, unconstitutionally, because the dumbasses in the Supreme Court think they can dictate everything. They think we can treat everything. Well, we can't treat everything. We can't cure everything. We can't provide treatment and make you feel good about yourselves that your sex offender is going to stop sex offending. Do you understand that? Some things we cannot change. Some things are rather permanent. And even the sex offenders know that. Some of them are desperate because they don't want to do it again. I had one guy that was in the penitentiary, and when he told me what his problem was, I told him I thought I could help him. And you know what he told me? My God, he set my ass right. He told me he didn't want to get out. He didn't want to risk doing it ever again. He didn't want to get out. He wanted to stay where he was because he didn't want to go raping anymore. It was a compulsion, a fixation on his mother that he visited on other women. And he hated it, what he did, he hated himself for it. So there was a trauma there. There was a source of it. Could have been addressed. Could have been treated. Now, could it have been fixed? I don't know. We didn't go there. He didn't want treatment. He didn't care for it. He was happy to be incarcerated. Wow. Folks, you're being held captive. You do not have constitutional rights. You have interstate commercial code. Uniform Commercial Code. It's a system that they started in 1952 whereby they wanted to standardize everything across the several states, which basically is communist. It's what the outcome is for that sort of thing. You need to have your separate republics. Your state needs its independence. And in case you're wondering, you don't have a republic because the states are no longer represented. There's a lot of other indicators that there's no more republic. But the number one indicator is that if you and I are arrested and hauled before a judge and we say, Your Honor, my rights in the Constitution, that judge could look at you from the bench and say, oh, so you were a party to the Constitution, meaning you signed it. No, you did not sign it. Not only that, but your current state that may have signed it, and not all of the states had, or even existing at that time. My state that I was born in did exist. and was one of the original colonies. And it was the state that certified the original 13th Amendment and proves that the original 13th Amendment was the law of the land. Why did Abraham Lincoln overwrite the 13th Amendment? Yeah, I know. We're going off in the field at this point. You got to hear this stuff. Look, Abraham Lincoln overwrote the original 13th Amendment because it made him a non-citizen. It deprived him from any and all citizenship in these states of the United States. It also, why? Because he was a member of the Bar Association, the British Accreditation Regency, or British Association Registry, which was beholden to the King of England, or to the Crown, the corporation called the Crown, in England. Why did our people go after the 13th Amendment? To put their attorneys in their place. And it's not titles of nobility. That's a red herring. That's bovine excrement. It's separation of powers. You see, the attorneys were already members of the third branch of government, the judiciary, which is the weakest branch of government. They are not co-equal. And they're the weakest branch of government for good reason. Read the Constitution and figure it out. You need to read it for yourself. You'll realize the judiciary is the weakest of the three branches, and this co-equal stuff is another fabrication they've been feeding us. Abraham Lincoln was barred from holding any office outside of the judiciary by the original 13th Amendment. In other words, he could not be a member of the legislative branch. He could not sit in the Congress or in the Senate because he was an officer of the court. And that was to maintain separation of powers. He also could not occupy the executive branch. He couldn't hold the office of president or vice president. They allowed the fraud to go on. Why? Because the Rothschild boys were sitting offshore with their navies. They were going to invade America and conquer and divide us and split up the goods, split the booty up. That's what the purpose of our Civil War was. That's why the bankers made that happen. That's also why a very wise man on the other side of the world stepped in to save us. And as a result of his stepping in to save us, his nation was targeted from our own shores. And the rebels, the invaders, the murderers came from our own shores into his nation and destroyed his nation and murdered the Tsar and his family. We allowed that to be launched from our shores, mostly from Manhattan, different parts of New York City. You need to understand the biggest identity theft in history is being perpetuated to this very day. It is a crime. I'm reporting it to you. Will you investigate it? Oh, no. Oh, hell no, you won't. You won't believe me. You'll just think, well, Grandpa, you don't know a damn thing. You're not with it. You need to listen to this music. You need to smoke this dope. You need to do this other bullshit. You need to be doing this stuff, man, because that's what we do today. Look, I know you turned into a party nation. That's because you're no good. You're not good anymore. So how do you make America good again? It's really simple. It's really simple. Let me show you. You follow the link down below. It takes you to a page, name publishers, and there's a pop-out, drop-down menu that will give you 5 different formats, if you will, of this particular Bible. Look at that. Proper name version of the King James Bible. This Bible restores the proper name of Yahweh, Creator, Father, God. It also employs the proper name for Yeshua. And in their Bibles through which they took us over with, especially the Schofield Reference Study Bible, in which they told more lies and had more footnotes and more analysis than Bible in that horrible thing. They called his name Jesus. That wasn't his name. It's important you know his name. Why? So you can bust out of the lies that you bought into. You can start to learn the truth. And Yahweh is an important name. And in case you're wondering where it comes from the original Bible and the original Paleo-Hebrew. What happened is in 275 BC, Ptolemy II was sitting in Alexandria overseeing the production of the Septuagint. 70 translators worked on that Bible. The Septuagint was the Greek version of the Old Testament. Why? It became necessary because the Hebrews weren't speaking Hebrew anymore. They weren't speaking Aramaic even. They were speaking Greek. They had been Hellenized. Most of them had left the country before 275 BC. You see, in 722 BC, a big thing happened. Israel was invaded by Assyria, and then subsequently invaded by Babylon. The occupants were taken out. They were deported. And as a result, because the house of Israel had sinned so badly by making not one, but 2 golden calves and worshiping those. Remember the golden calf story out of Egypt? What do you think that bull is on Wall Street? Look, folks, they were basically kicked out of the country and were called Caucasians after the Caucasus Mountain Range because our ancestors, I'm going to speak generally here and scientifically accurately for you, generally speaking, crossed the Caucasus Mountain Range in three giant waves and broke into Europe and the rest of the world. So, where I come from in Alaska, just like the other damn states, on my driver's license, and I'm not, I got a little bit of other stuff in me too. We're all mixes these days. Don't kid yourself. And if you think that, there's problems with those races that you're identifying with, then why don't you try going back to Denison, Cro-Magnon, Neanderthal, and a few others that are tossed in there because you got those genetics in you too. We all do. And none of us knows how much of what we have in us. So you want to be a racist or a speciesist or whatever you want to call it. Folks, the state doesn't want you to be reminded that you're Caucasoid, that you're a Caucasian. You know why that is? Because the logical thing would be, okay, how did we get named that? We were named that because there's a pass called the Darrell Pass, which was also called the Gates of Israel. And our ancestors came through there. And of course, the follow-up question is, geez, if they came across the Caucasus Mountain Range, the Caucasus, where did we come from? Where did we come from? I mean, don't we ask Mommy and Daddy that question as children? We came from the Northern House of Israel. We are the real deal. And we are written about throughout this whole book. The United States of America is in here, starting in the book of Genesis. And in the book of Isaiah, he talks about bitter waters, which is what you got going on right now, and you're going to have a lot more of it. They're going to poison this nation. They're going to sabotage. They're going to blow up everything they can. That's why you need to shut the borders down. You need to take up arms, long arms and short arms. And you need to start guarding these things because your government's not going to do it. This Biden administration will not protect your ass. There's no way. And these state governments have all been hobbled. They're also corporations as well. They're not organic state governments. And you could start putting organic state governments in place and get rid of these corporate jackasses. The same with your courts. Retired Judge Spills the Beans by Judge Dale. Maine Republic. We're all supposed to be individual republics. And we individual republics had our representatives sign the Constitution. First we signed the Declaration of Independence, and eventually we signed the Constitution. And those individual republics are the parties to that agreement, to that contract. And they are no longer represented. Why? Because your senators are elected directly by the people. So they can become permanent lifetime professional leeches, professional politicians. And how did that happen? Well, Congress wanted to get paid. And Congress made a deal with the Senate. Senators wanted to be elected so that they couldn't be fired. You see, your senators came from among the legislators of your states. And if your senator, representing your state government, representing those legislators, failed to vote the way the state legislatures wanted them to vote, they were fired. They were subject to instant recall. And then they would come home from D.C. and finish off the seat that they had originally been elected to in the state legislature. And that was it. I say we go a step further. We mandate that all pay and salary for senators be provided by their states, by their state governments. And I don't care if it's not uniform. Matter of fact, I don't want it to be the same. I think the senators ought to get paid according to the way their legislators deem fit. And as far as benefits go, no, we'll leave it up to the state legislators if they want to give them benefits. And as far as Congress goes, Congress was just getting a per diem. They wanted to get paid. They wanted to become professional politicians. You see, your Congress was just a voluntary position, and you only served as long as you could afford to support yourself. And once you couldn't afford to support yourself and you ran out of money, that was your term limit. You had to go home. Somebody else would go in and represent your constituency, the group of people that you represented. And they got a simple per diem stipend to defray, not cover the entire cost, but to defray the cost of food and lodging. So, your original structure of your legislative branches, senators were subject to instant recall. And when you have that, you don't have any more mavericks and jackasses wrecking things for the rest of us. And as a result of the fact that senators know they can be fired and called in an instant, they behave themselves better. They're far more civil and cordial. They make sure that the change that happens is proper, and it slows things down so things don't go too fast. And they don't wreck our republic, which is what they've done. So, your congresswomen and congressmen made a deal so they could get salaries. That's not the original structure. I say we go back to the original structure. And no pay, no benefits, simple per diem that doesn't even cover the cost of meals and lodging, just to defray it somewhat. The per diem. Yeah. And when they run out of money, that's it. We don't end up with some old biddy in there dictating to the rest of us what the Chi-Coms want her to do for us, for them. We don't get bought out like we have been by the Chinese or by the international bankers, the banksters. We don't have a criminal element running the government and the country. You see, folks, you're living in the beast system. The beast has captured the United States of America. The beast has 3 heads in the Bible. And one of those heads is Washington, D.C. If you're watching this, then you need to know who the other heads are of this beast. It's a 3-headed eagle. 2 Esdras, chapter 11. It's on the internet. Go look it up. Look it up. You need to understand what is about to unravel, unfurl, to be unleashed. You need also to understand they do predictive programming. And you are subject to the brainwashing. And you need to understand something. You need to read that Bible for yourself. You need to see that there's certain futures that are predicted in there, indicated in there. And I'm going to tell you my view and my perspective. And that's mostly on my other channel, Awakening Israel, AI. What I suggest you do is you get a copy of my Bible. It's the best Bible available. It is more accurate than the original 1611 King James Bible. My ancestor brought you the 1611 King James Bible. He also brought you the Shakespearean plays. He couldn't live underneath his proper last name. He couldn't live underneath the name of Kent. Why? Because he was the consort of the Queen of England. And had the people realized that she had had children outside of marriage, they would have beheaded Queen Elizabeth. So Sir Francis Bacon had a totally different name than Kent, or even of his mother. They hid that fact from you for centuries. And that was unknown to me until I went to school, went to the Università di Gonzaga, a Firenze, Italia. Until I went to the University of Gonzaga in Florence, Italy. I didn't know about this. I didn't know about this history. I didn't know about my family. I didn't know about the major role the Kents played in this world that we have right now today. And I really feel privileged because I get to bring you this. This is the biggest, most important breakthrough in recent centuries. Why? Because they've done things to the Bible that have been used to capture the majority of you. You go to your big box churches, but you don't read your Bible. You listen to what they say, and you listen to them preach their world communism from the pulpits. Yeah, I listened to them as well. I even went to Bible school up there in Anchorage for one semester. I didn't do very well. They didn't like me very much. And today I get to laugh because, let's face it, this life of mine has been kind of strange. The path has been a little bit unusual. So I'm bringing you the proper name version of the King James Bible. Much more accurate than the original King James Bible. When you read this Bible, you will come to know the proper names, the proper terms, and there are other words that have been translated much more accurately in here. I thought I found an error in the New Testament. I think the book began, if, and two ifs. Oh, come on now. We all know that my spell check would tell me that's duplicitous. That's twice in a row. Let's delete one of those. So I called up the publisher. Publisher looked it up. There were actually two different words that were both translated as if. And so there were two words there, so he put two ifs there. It's proper. You need to learn his name. You need to understand that they've been practicing magic and witchcraft on us for thousands of years. They've been hiding their presence among us for a long time. This is the fight between good and evil. And you folks who want to make America great again, let's change that. Let's be satisfied with making America good again. Because you need to understand that they're about to unleash the nukes right now. That's where they're heading this for. You'd say, well, nobody in their right mind would do that, Dr. Kent. Why would they do that? Folks, they're not like you or I. You tend to judge other people by your own nature. And if you've got a pretty good nature, then you remain naive to their evil nature. They are here. Now that I've told you this, I got some really bad news for you. We only have in this book the story of one of the fallen angels and that fallen angel's offspring. And that was Gadriel. There are 199 other fallen angels that did the same stuff here on the planet. And we're dealing with that. Now let's take it into a little bit more scientific term, perhaps. Aliens. Well, then you need to understand something, that we have all been placed upon this planet at different times, except perhaps the original man, the earthy man, the Enoshwi. Those are the two old words for the original man, who's been on the planet for almost 2 million years. Okay? Yeah. And so the Adamkind, wasn't placed upon the planet until last. We're the newcomers. We were put here for a reason. And that was to take this over and turn it into the kingdom of heaven for all of the species on this planet, for the well-being of Mother Earth. You see, folks, you can't go anywhere else. Your genes, your genetic material that you're made of, most of it comes from your biome. In other words, it comes from what's around you, what's living on your skin, what's living in you, the organisms, the bacteria. It doesn't come from your parents. So you are indeed an earthling. And this is it, folks. And these evil guys have destroyed other planets before. Look at Mars. They had an atmosphere. They had vast civilizations up there. It's been destroyed. Look at your asteroid belt. That planet, it's obviously been destroyed. Folks, I'm going to close here. And I got one word for you, and that's it. The earth groans for her saviors. And at this particular point, you need to save your own ass, because you are being attacked. The evil ones know who you are. They know who they are too. That gives them the advantage. You don't know who they are. You don't even know who you are. And as a result of that, you don't know who they are. And they walk among us freely. They look just like you or me. And the Chinese had a lot to do with those folks a long time ago, and they wrote about them. Yeah, folks, the Chinese word for Caucasian is white devil. Why? Because they ran into the original bad guys, the original fallen angels, the original aliens that were driven to the earth in a giant space battle out there. You see, folks, most all of what you think is true is true. It's just a matter of perspective. It's just a matter of flexibility of mind. It's a matter of assembling these parts and pieces together. But be careful. Be careful with it. Do not major in evil. Do not study the evil stuff. And there's a lot of evil stuff in here, folks. Just don't study it. Why? Because I'll tell you, the worst evil of all, Yahweh Creator Father says 5 times. That's not a double witness, folks. That's 5 times. He says they did things that never even entered his mind, that never even crossed his mind. He never imagined such wickedness. If God can't imagine it, imagine how bad it is. And that's what you've got running your planet today. That's what you've got running your country today. Where's Epstein's book at? Why is that not made public? Why did your last president fail to release the Kennedy records? Yeah, he went against the law. The statutory law signed by another president decades ago. They were supposed to be released all on that October 17th. And he sealed them up again. Is that an America firster? Is that someone who puts we the people first? Afraid to publish it? Afraid to let it out there because it would destroy the government as it stands? Do you like this government the way it's going? Do you see the path that you're on? It is a path of absolute destruction. I get to wake your stupid asses up. Wake up, folks. You are the target. It is an unlimited warfare. They fight it using nuclear, biological, electrical, gunpowder. I mean, sound. frequencies. They got all kinds of weapons going on. Oh, and above all, poisons. Yeah. We have all been poisoned, subject to their poisoning. And you're going to figure that out. This FDA, which is supposed to mean Food and Drug Administration, right? Do you know what it really stands for? I announced this on the radio more than a decade ago, and you didn't get it. It's called the Federal Death Administration for good reason. My hour's up, folks. That's all I got for you. May Yahweh bless. Make America good again.